What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the Thursday show, gang. Make sure the microphone was on there. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope the week has gone by quickly and smoothly for you out there in your workplaces, in your lives and everything. Hopefully some good DFS results along the way as well. Got an afternoon slate of baseball, mostly not quite done yet, I don't think. I think the Pirates game that I was watching before ended, though. Andrew Heaney with his best start in like 5 years, 7 scoreless innings in that one. But we're here to talk about a 5-game main slate. This one, just like yesterday, starting up at 6:35, so just be aware of that. Both sites went with the same 5-gamer. That's in order to catch the Guardians-Orioles and the Royals-Tigers games, which are 6:35 and 6:40, before we hit Yanks-Tampa Bay at 7, St. Louis and the Mets at 7, and then just a short wait tonight, not that big 2-hour gap between the next to last game and the final game. We've got the Angels and the Rangers at 8 o'clock. With the wind blowing out to left field, it looks like. Interesting little slate to talk through, though. We got some good pitching available. Let's say hi to everybody. Cujo's here. Good to see him. Andy, Lone Wolf, Woody. Bunch of regulars piling in. We give people a couple minutes to trickle in as we just talk the start of the slate. Anybody hit anything last night? Anything good? I played a handful of lineups. Ended up going out. Had a couple of beers with my buddy Charlie. We went out to you guys have it's a franchise, I'm sure they're all over the place. It's called Yestercades. It's basically like a storefront place with a bunch of old video games, old pinball machines and everything, and you pay. There's no quarters involved. You just get like a bracelet and then you pay by the time, kind of like at a pool hall. Really cool little place. There's one in Red Bank down by where I grew up as well. I'd been to that one before. Basically the end of the night for that one, basically a blackout drunk. Didn't really remember much of it. But we had a blast. A lot of fun video games. Played some pinball. Had a couple beers. Did our thing. Also had some ridiculous spicy chicken. It's this joint that it's a blend, fusion like Indian and Nashville spicy chicken. And oh my God, ridiculous. We got the medium and I can still feel it right now. It's absurd. But yeah, really good. I got the they have like this they do chicken and waffles, they do regular chicken sandwich, chicken tenders and stuff. So I got the chicken and waffle sandwich, and it was like that. One of those ones that you just can't actually eat as a sandwich. Got a couple bites on it, just mashing it into my face, and then I just had to default to the knife and fork. But fun time, really good night. Missed some of what was going on in baseball, just getting a couple beers deep. But no, we didn't hit the Kyle Schwarber home run pick because we were listening to the Phillies game. Charlie's a big Phillies fan. Was also ready to give up on the season after 3 weeks. Multiple times I had to say, it's April 16th. Calm down. You have one of the best teams in baseball. And he's got one of the Yestercades down in Delray Beach. Yeah, I figured they were all around. Fun spot, though. Really cool. I just love the idea of just not having to pump quarters in. And that came up multiple times. It was like, yep, that would have been another quarter right there. We were playing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 4-player game. It's just like, yeah, we just keep on going. That would have been another quarter. That would have been another quarter. We didn't make it very far in many of the games, but it was fun because I'm so bad at all those games now that I got to experience a really broad spectrum of all of them and jump in for a couple of lives on each of them. But hopefully you guys had good Wednesday nights. Let's jump into this slate now. We got a handful of people here to start the show out. Just updated the Vegas board real quick. We've got Guardians and Orioles, 8.5 run total in that one. We've got a couple really even up games. It's Tanner Bybee on the bump looking for his first really good start of the season going up against the tough Orioles lineup. And then it's kind of low-end Tomoyuki Sugano pitching for the Orioles. We haven't really seen much out of him. We haven't even seen much depth out of him yet. Hasn't gotten lit up either, but doesn't really project well as a DFS option. Some pretty solid run totals, though, 4 and change on both sides of that game in an essentially even game with an 8.5 total. Michael Lorenzen against Reese Olson in the next one. Lorenzen on the hill for the Royals. Tigers favored in a home game. They're also pulling a 4.40 implied total against Lorenzen. Memory serves, they were not actually mapping out all that well, though. I think they're down toward the bottom of the stacks board. Just a day where a lot of the stacks were playing up pretty solidly for offense. I just want to see. Yeah, they were 10 of 10 on the stacks board, which is interesting because that's a healthy enough total. I think it's a day where all 10 offenses are in play. You've got two sub 4 totals, but it's on the Cards, who are at least respectable, and the Royals, who are a good lineup for DFS. Everybody else showing mid 4s to the Dodgers, or the Rangers rather, up at 5.5. So while they dip to the bottom, I don't know that I fully trust it. I might actually give that an update and see if I can squeeze them up a couple spots, because Lorenzen's definitely a gettable starter. He can also break off a decent start here and there. And then we have Reese Olson on the mound for the Tigers. He hasn't been great in his first 3. Couple of earned runs in each game. Hasn't really hit big strikeout totals. He's been losing guys to walks, but he is a very good, effective pitcher. Tough matchup for him, though. So not a pushover spot on either side of that one. The Yankees and the Rays are showing absurd power. Right now, it's like 88, 89 degrees in Tampa Bay. It's going to be like 85 at game time. The ball is going to be flying out of this ballpark. Dead even 4.5 runs on both sides of this one. Aaron Judge is doubling the magic number in the home run model. You'll see it in a minute. A couple guys from the Yanks above the magic number, most notably Ben Rice and Jazz Chisholm Jr., who I made the home run pick of the day just because I didn't want to seem all Yankee fanny about it and go with going with Ben Rice, and I certainly wasn't going to pick Aaron Judge. And then multiple guys on the Rays, also above the magic number in that one. So really interesting spot. It's Taj Bradley on the mound for the Rays, though. We could see a monster strikeout performance against these free-swinging Yankees from Taj Bradley. He is very good for Ks. It's just this ballpark is deadly bad. He's also bad with losing walks. He can give up some power. And then Will Warren on the mound for the Yanks. Had a good outing in his most recent one against the Giants. He's given up a couple of runs in each of his starts. He was a buzzy pitcher coming through spring. He's off to a decent, not great start. Like he hasn't been shut him down. This guy's a future ace kind of level, but he's been effective. But everything about the ballpark, the situation that I just said about Taj Bradley, probably works even more so on Will Warren. And that Rays offense is at least interesting. The Cards win the low total at 358 implied runs, and the Mets kind of low on their side of that one. It's Griff Canning on the mound for the Mets, who we know is gettable, but has been showing some signs of improvement coming through the spring, and then up and down in his first few starts. He gave up 4 earned runs over 5 1/3 to the Athletics at Sacramento the last time out. A lot of home run, 3 strikeouts, 3 walks. It was more old Canning popping his head up in that one. So we'll see what we get. But an effectively low total on both sides of that one. It's Andre Palante on the mound for the Cards. And we've talked about him before with his ability to suppress home run upside. He went out. That was a start against, that was the one against the Phillies, I want to say. And I was saying, like, yeah, we could probably get some Phillies bats because there's not too much upside on him other than suppressing the power. And he went out, twirled 7 innings, 2-hitter. No earned runs, struck out 4, walked 2. He also had a 6 strikeout game, which was kind of uncharacteristic. That was over 4 1/3 against the Red Sox. Gave up 2 earned runs in that one, but walked 3. It was a bumpy start. But he's very, very good at sapping home run power, which is kind of draining the upside out of the Mets at just a 4 total, one of the lower marks on the board. But they obviously still have some very appealing DFS hitters. It's just going to be a matter of overcoming his knack for keeping the ball in the yard. And then the final game, 9.5 run total, the highest on the board. 5.25 implied total for the Rangers, the highest on the board. They're going up against Jack Kachanowicz, who has not shown us very much at the major league level yet. Definitely think they're interesting, but they rank 3rd actually on the stacks board behind both the Yanks and the Rays, who I have up at the top. Both those teams carried upward by their home run totals, the ballpark, and the matchups. But definitely going to mind some Rangers for offensive upside. They're looking very good. And then it's Kumar Rocker on the mound for them going up against the Angels. Probably leans me towards some Angels bats. I think we just try and exploit the young pitcher who's been shaky in 2 of his 3 starts. Was good in the middle start, but only struck out 1. So there's going to be some contact available for some Angels bats that we like. They're pulling a mid-4s total, just like the teams up here. Maybe they get a little bit sneaky on the short side of that total. Jump over to the pitching board. See what you guys are talking about. Carlos Soto, what's going on, buddy? Good to see you. Lone Wolf's here. Larry's right by yesterkids. All right. Rule it, Miss Pac-Man. I played some Miss Pac-Man last night. I got very annoyed with myself. I just got jammed in the corner and died on the first level of Miss Pac-Man last night, and right before clearing it, and I was not happy about it. And then I wasted my next 2 lives and walked away. I think I cursed in front of a very small child when I died on the first level of Miss Pac-Man last night. KC Detroit drop. Nice. Ricky, appreciate it. Ricky Rose says, just subscribe. Thanks for all you do. I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you. Happy to do it. That's what we're here for. Oh, we got a handful of lineups out. All right, let me grab KC Detroit while we're talking here. KC, there's Detroit. Plenty of time today. We'll get these up on the site after the show. I won't need to upload them during. Hockey projections for tonight. It's a 7-gamer. I'm like midway through them. I was waiting on a few updates for line combinations, but they'll be up fairly shortly after this show. It won't be 6 o'clock for the NHL projections today or 6:20 like it was the other day. They got away from me a little bit with all the changes. A lot of teams resting skaters, bringing some kids up. So it's been a little bit messy. All right, let's see. The Rays lineup is in as well. And Cards and Mets have the Cards. I don't think I have the Mets. Yeah, I think that's all of them. All right. So as mentioned, Reese Olson, very talented, standing at the top of the board. It's kind of a logjam up at the top, though. We've got 3 pitchers with not much daylight between their projections in Reese Olson, Tanner Bybee, and Taj Bradley. Definite downside for each one of those guys, though. I don't think we have an overly safe pitcher on this slate kind of at all, which is why I was saying all of the 10 offenses are in play, despite where the Tigers might rank. I think they're very much in play on that board. So it's a bats kind of day and just get through. I think each of these pitchers is going to get down. I mean, somebody will go out there and have a great start and bend the slate. But I think a lot of these pitchers were looking at several runs allowed, and it's going to come down to depth and potentially, adding some Ks on top of giving up some runs, which is where Taj Bradley definitely could pay off. He has major strikeout upside against those Yankees. And if it's a day where the Yanks, while looking very good, end up coming in 4 or 5 runs instead of piling up 8 or 9 runs. If he gives up 4 over like 6 innings and still comes away with 7-8 strikeouts on a day like this, that could play even at 10,000, even at 9,000, offset pretty significantly by price. The one I don't love the pricing on is all the way down here with Palante. While he's good and while you might get the 7 innings of clean pitching, the upside for K's is pretty dicey. And if the Mets drop just a couple of runs on him, it does bend his day pretty badly because you don't have that backup of like he gave up 4, but he had 9 strikeouts. You don't see those days from Palante all that much. So at 91, his second most expensive pitcher on FanDuel. At 87, the second most expensive pitcher on DraftKings. I think he's playable, but those are funky prices for that pitcher. He should be in Will Warren territory. He should be in Lorenzen territory price-wise. These 2 prices, I'm excited about both of them in terms of getting those pitchers at those prices, but I don't like either of these matchups. Royals are very good. They're low strikeout. The Orioles are very good with breakout upside, and Bybee has not looked good over the first 3 starts. But either one of those guys plays for sure at those prices, and there's nothing to do about how they project. The only thing I really manipulate in there is what the innings depth is going to look like, and I put them both at, I think, pretty reasonable numbers. In full, like, mid-season form, they would be projecting a couple points higher in these spots, just on innings. At 71-74, I think Griff Canning is easily on the board, given the, at least from time to time, upticks in performance that we've seen and can see from Canning. But he's also a target for some bats. I don't love that St. Louis lineup, but there's enough to work with there. There's Nolan Gorman, presumably, is in that lineup. I haven't looked through the confirm yet, but I like his power upside. Yeah, he's hitting 7th. I like Lars Nootbaar at the top. I love throwing lefties at Griff Canning, and there's a couple of decent ones there in among some very good right-handed bats. So Canning's not safe, but he's cheap. 71-74 projects similarly to everybody else in the middle of the board. Will Warren, like I talked about, just the danger of that pretty good Tampa lineup, but compounded by that Tampa ballpark where I expect the ball's going to be flying today. Lorenzen against the dangerous Tigers lineup. good enough to get through, but not a huge ceiling for the money. I'd probably lean more Canning, Warren, Olsen, Bybee. And that Tigers lineup, again, despite dropping down in the aggregate down toward the bottom, there's some real upside bats up toward the top of that lineup. Kumar Rocker at 6,400 is interesting just as a cheap piece on FanDuel. I think you can get away with that play. Even if we get only 5 innings, if he picks up a couple of Ks and doesn't do too poorly in the runs department, that could be interesting. 75 on DraftKings, he's just more on the board playable, but lower end, I think, than all of the guys above him in the same price range. DraftKings didn't really do you any favors putting him at that price, and that Angels lineup is one that I'm, again, very interested in at least exploring some options for today. Talked about Palante, and then the bottom of the board, Kachanowicz looking deadly bad. Not even reaching a 20-point projection, not even reaching 10 on DraftKings. Doesn't look worth the money. And Sugano's pretty much right there. There's really not much strikeout upside. He hasn't been working deep into games. He's looked the part of a 35-year-old pitcher. He's very cheap. If you want to just layer in some $6,000 shares as an SP2 on DK, I think there's just enough there for that price. Probably prefer him to Kachanowicz, given the totals. We do not have the guards yet, huh? Rockies fire hitting coach Hensley Mullins. That'll solve all your problems. Clint Hurdle's going to be the Rockies hitting coach the rest of the year. Jake Fraley hit a grand slam. Go-ahead grand slam in Cincinnati. Oh, I guess it's no longer go-ahead. It's 7-7 now. Top 9. Seems like a good game, actually. So let's dive into this thing. PowerBooks, what's going on? PowerBooks says, also just described long-time listener from Awesome Stochastic Days. Terry knows his shit. Multiple sports. Great content. Appreciate you, buddy. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming along for the ride after not being over at Awesome anymore, and appreciate the compliment. Very, very nice of you to say. Hit the like button out there as we dive in. Subscribe to the channel. Check out rotoscouts.com. Access to baseball projections, along with you get my individual home run model marks for each player. You get my top sacks. You get my home run picks. Whatever else is up on the website. You also get NBA projections and NHL projections for every main slate through the playoffs into next season. NFL, when that's back around, all inclusive, under $1 a day, weekly, monthly, quarterly plans available. Also, check out acemind.io. Optimizer and sim tools over there. Every major sport in play over there. Some of the best pricing in the industry, too, for those deep, powerful sim tools that they provide. Really good bang for your buck. Check those guys out. I think they're still doing a couple free days up top off of them. And then when you decide to subscribe, promo code rotoscouts, all in caps, gets you 20% off your first month with those guys. Links are in the description. Links to Rotoscouts also in the description. I think StreamYard is inserting a link in there. I have nothing to do with that. I think if you're out there creating content, StreamYard's pretty powerful and it works. So click the link in the thing, and I think I get $25 if you set up a show. I don't know where that came from. They just started dropping it into the descriptions. I think there's a thing I can click to make it go away. Anywho, so Tanner Bybee, 79.75. Again, projecting out well because the model's got a long memory. I forget who I said that about yesterday. But over the first 3 starts, 5 2/3 in his first one against the Royals was all right. Didn't give up any earned, only 2 hits, but only struck out 2, walked 2. Uncharacteristic start in terms of the Ks. The second 2 starts went 4 exactly in both starts, struck out 4 in each game, but gave up 7 runs on 9 hits in the middle game. That was against the Angels at Los Angeles. 4 home runs allowed. So that was a messy disaster of a start. The Angels have had a couple of those big games with multiple home runs. Power hitting team. His third start, he faced the Royals again. 4 2/3 in that one. He actually only gave up 3 hits, no earned runs in that one either, but only struck out 4 and walked 4. So he actually has 2 starts bookending the disaster in the middle, over which he went, 10 1/3, and gave up no earned runs, allowed 5 hits over that stretch, struck out 6 and walked 6. So the Ks and the walks aren't where we want them. But in terms of the damage done outside of that performance against the Angels, it hasn't been bad. 4.40 ERA is deceptive. The 5.27 xFIP is ugly, not nearly where you want it, and kind of defies what I'm saying, because in those games where he pitched cleanly as far as the actual runs scored, the first one 5.89 xFIP under the 0 ERA, the second one 4.79 xFIP under the 0 ERA. So that's reflective of the lack of strikeouts, the walks, the 1.40 whip. This was all from that Angels game, the home runs that he allowed. 11.1% barrels allowed, though. He's given up some premium contact, fly ball trajectory, and we've got a fair number of home run hitters in this Orioles lineup. But again, 7,900, 7,500 for Tanner Bybee, who we do know is a plus pitcher. Last year, 26.3% strikeouts against 6.2% walks at 12.2% swinging strike rate, 3.72 xFIP. He was gettable for power here and there. He's a fly ball pitcher, so you're going to be able to put the ball over the wall from time to time, and then you get the happenstance home runs in between. But Bybee's a very effective starter. Year before, 24.1% strikeouts over 25 outings, 7.7% walks, 2.98 ERA, but a 4.22 xFIP. Perfectly serviceable numbers as a young pitcher coming up. So we're getting a discount. It's unlikely that he's going to remain anywhere near these prices over the next couple of months. And he's more than talented enough to get through this Orioles team. They're very good, but there are some strikeouts there for your 21, 22% strikeout team overall, around the average. So he could go out and have a day. There's nothing to say that he couldn't, but in no way is he safe here. And there is a visible downside. For Sugano, and part of that as well, Stuff Plus, sitting at 97.1. Last year, though, just 98, and he was good. So he's one of those pitchers that can make that work. Sugano, 92 mark by Stuff Plus in his first season in the show, 14 innings so far, 3 starts. We haven't seen strikeouts. We've seen some walks. We've seen a 3.86 ERA with a 5.51 xFIP. Last time out, he struck out 0. He gave up 3 earned on 8 hits. He walked 2, allowed a homer. That was to Toronto in a home game. 5 1/3 in probably his best start was the middle game against Kansas City. Went 5 1/3, allowed 1 earned run on a solo homer, 5 hits, struck out 4, walked 1. Just went 4 in the first start, 2 earned, struck out 1, walked 2. There's really not a lot of meat on the bone here for Sugano. The thing I was most excited to say was that the site seemed to have fixed his name. The other day they had him as Tomoyoki on both DraftKings and FanDuel, and it did not match everything else in the model. It's kind of annoying to have to fix. But, I mean, just 6.8% swinging strikes at 23.8% CSW. Maybe he'll get out there and get stretched out and start eating innings for this club as it warms up. But we're not getting much DFS upside, and we're going up against a good Guardians lineup that, I've mentioned a few times, there are sneakier, they're more sneaky to target for strikeouts this year than they've been in years past. But there's still some excellent low strikeout hitters, and he's not all that capable of putting away the other guys. So I think we consider the Guardians offense. I think we consider the Orioles offense for sure against Tanner Bybee here. As discussed, all 10 teams definitely going to be in play. 4.27 total over here for a pretty good Guardians team. Stephen Kwan presumably in. We got the lineup. Perfect. Glad I checked. At a glance, it's the same. So Stephen Kwan in the leadoff role. Oh, no, it wasn't the same. A couple things changed. I think that's the same guys in a different order, though. 51-31 for Kwan. He's got 3 home runs on the board. I mentioned the odd power that he's flashing and deliberately trying to swing for home run power in certain spots. It's not translating like he's not barreling the ball 14% of the time all of a sudden or anything. He doesn't have a different hard hit rate or barrel rate really notably than he did previous seasons. But in certain opportunities, he's got that much bat control that he can just swing slightly differently and drive the ball a little bit more effectively. Has been doing it since last year. He hit 14 home runs over 540 plate appearances last year. Totally uncharacteristic, but it seems like it's a trait that might stick. Add that on top of his ability to hit basically 300, get on base constantly, create runs like crazy, 335 xWOBA, 147 WRC plus, makes him a more valuable fantasy player. Very low strikeout, medium walk rate, so tons and tons of high-quality bat on ball. Jose Ramirez is just the superstar. You just roll with him. The price is right, 56.37. It's not going to get much cheaper than that. 9.30 in the home run model. The premium contact, as mentioned multiple times, he does what he does without needing double-digit barrels, without needing ridiculous, crazy hard hit rates. He's just very, very good and effective. 4 home runs on the board already. 310x WOBA, but a 268 ISO, 139 WRC plus. Just stick with Jose Ramirez if you're going to the Guardians. You don't want to skip him. Carlos Santana, 44.26. Cheap for the effective bat, 262, 329, 385. 300x WOBA, you'd like to see that be a little bit higher to support the upside, but he's barreled 9.4% of balls in the small sample, which is up from last year. 41.5% hard hits is up from last year. He's maintained his viably low strikeout rate while being right around his previous walk rates, 9.6, not far off 10.9, 10.5. So he's just a good on-base option who can drive the ball still. I expect home runs will continue, and they'll be spotty overall, but we'll probably finish 16 to 18 home runs. It's a good bat for 4,400, 2,600. No Manzardo. That's who came out of the lineup. So no positional conflict at first base to worry about with Carlos Santana. Gives him more appeal today, too. Gabriel Arias at 33-26 with 3 positions on FanDuel. He's hit 4 home runs already this season, 250 ISO, more importantly, 354 xWOB underneath that with a 159 WRC plus. Double-digit barrel rate at 11.4%. This is a kid we've kind of been waiting on and looked at in spots as a cheap option from down lineup for that power upside. If he's going to be delivering it with any kind of consistency this year, if he can manage to keep up anything like his 288, 356, 538, this is an interesting hitter. They've moved him up in the lineup now, too. So you get him directly correlated with the top 3 hitters in the lineup. You've also got quality bats in Nolan Jones and Lane Thomas right behind him. 2 high-quality line drive 2020 type players when all's going right. We've seen that from both these guys in the past. Right now, both guys are struggling. 45 and 37 plate appearances, 132, 267, 211, and 147, 189, 176. Jones is sitting at a 51 WRC plus, while Lane Thomas is mired at a 6. Not good. 94% below average. But that's why they're so cheap. 32, 38 for those 2 players. It's just effective pricing. 23, 27 more so on FanDuel. So cheap source of outfielders with talent on the Guardians from either side of the plate going up against a super gettable pitcher. Those 2 bats are interesting to me. Right? Like a lot of times I say, yeah, these guys are interesting, but they're not a reason to go to the Guardians. To me, getting these 2 guys added into the quality that we already get for these prices kind of does make them a reason to want to go to the Guardians. I think this is a good spot, and I would want to include those guys. They help you average down the only 2 expensive players in the lineup. FanDuel, you're definitely looking 1, 2, and then I would probably want to grab Arias at either second or short, preferably second. And then I'm dealing with just one of these outfielders, obviously, but I get very cheap if I'm leaving Carlos Santana off the board. The shorter ability to stack on FanDuel with only 4 options does thin this out a little bit in terms of wanting to prioritize it. I think they're more interesting as a full 5-man on DraftKings, given the ability to put Jones and Thomas in there. Oops. 20 home runs, 20 stolen bases in 2023 for Lane Thomas. Same season for Nolan Jones, 2020. That's not that long ago. Both guys over a 200 ISO, 135 and a 109 WRC plus. Last year was ugly for both players. Thomas at least still give you 15 home runs and 32 steals. Jones was worse in half a season. But there's too much talent there to ignore those prices. And especially when you're considering Guardians against one of the weakest pitchers on the slate. Ced Mullins up in the leadoff spot for the Orioles. Oh, apologies. Daniel Schneemann, Austin Hedges, and Brian Rocchio are also in the Guardians lineup. Any one of those guys can mix into an abundance of Guardian stacks. Not one of those guys is overly appealing. Hedges is a cheap catcher with a very minor amount of pop in the bat. You could maybe get away with that, but it's pretty thin on all 3 of those bottom guys in the lineup. So what they can give you is a little bit of ability maybe to just put the ball in play, turn the lineup over, and you're not dead with those guys at the bottom of your lineup as far as the sequencing and as far as keeping these guys up here alive for DFS production. The Orioles lineup plays a lot deeper, though. Ced Mullins in the leadoff role at 49.35. Great start to his year at 308, 455, 635. The 399 xWOBA is very appealing. The fact that he's been 117% better than average for run creation so far is pretty damn appealing. Ced Mullins has been excellent this season. And I said it opening day, and I've repeated it a bunch of times. This is a guy who not too long ago, 30-30 type player. 16 and 34, and maybe it was in 2021. But 18 home runs, 32 steals, 15 home runs, 19 steals, 16 home runs, 34 steals. Positive WRC plus. Ced Mullins is a good player. 16.7% Ks and 18.2% walks to start his season. The strikeouts will stay low. The walks aren't going to stay that high, but he's a very good option in the leadoff role. Gunnar, with all his power at shortstop, 7.86 in the home run model, yet to put one on the board. I picked him from the Orioles today as the team-based pick, just because there's just too much upside to ignore. And if Bibby's going to struggle, Bibby's going to continue allowing a little bit of power and premium contact. Gunnar's the guy you want. 69.2% hard hits so far. Last year, 11.2% barrels and 53.9% hard hits. Just hasn't really barreled the ball yet in his 43 plate appearances, but we'll get there. I am entirely confident. Just ignore all the numbers, including the expected WOBA. Adley Rutschman at 52-32, highly playable catcher. He's hit 3 home runs, hasn't done much else at the plate yet this year, but the 393 xWOBA tells us there's way more to come. The 11.3% barrel rate backs that up. Low strikeout, high walk catcher. Tons of upside for run creation, tons of upside for DFS scoring. On FanDuel, you can play him like he's their first baseman. No issues with that, especially because you can get outfield eligibility on Ryan O'Hearn if you want him. Ryan Mountcastle is at first base, but you can go back and forth between those two guys. If you're sacrificing Mountcastle for Adley from 6 spots higher up in the lineup or 5 spots higher up in the lineup, perfectly fine. O'Hearn's just good. An effective bat, 50% hard hits, 7.9% barrels, looking a lot like the Ryan O'Hearn from 2 years ago so far in the small sample. Doesn't strike out, does draw walks, does create runs very effectively. 166 WRC plus so far. A 405 xWOBA shows you where that power and those line drives come from. I mean, he's very, very good in that regard. 209 ISO. Productive player who never gets the respect from DFS players that I think he warrants. 4,000 at first base, 2,800 first base and outfield. Very, very appealing bat if you're going to Orioles. And again, I do think that they're a very playable stack. Jordan Westberg at 5,000, 3,000 hasn't done too much so far this season to earn the 5,000 DraftKings price, but we're basing a lot of that on last year. 3,000 on FanDuel, slightly more affordable. Love him at second base either way, though. 3 home runs on the board, a 161 to ISO. The 368 xWOBA is suggestive of much more to come and more like what we saw from him last year. Last year, 18 home runs and 447 plate appearances, a 216 ISO. Creator runs 25% better than average. Just keep going there if you're stacking Orioles. He's good. If the price is coming down, so much the better. Histon Kjerstad, 3,300, 2,400, 1 home run on the board. The bat has been okay. What we like is the 12.9% barrels, the 51.6% hard hits in the small sample of batted ball events over 43 plate appearances. There is power there. Last year, 4 home runs and 114. The year before, he hit 2 in his 33 plate appearances. We've seen more at the minor league level, but a lefty bat against scuffling righty, a very good righty, but currently scuffling. There's upside there if you need to average down the prices for the guys above him. I think that's probably his most effective attribute, but he's a playable piece, 4.34 in the home run model. I remain interested in Ryan Mountcastle at 37-27. He's got 1 home run on the board. We're at 273, 310, 382. The 339 xWOBA is appealing, more so the 16.7% barrels, the 57+% hard hits. Jackson Holiday, I think that was a grand slam last night, if I remember correctly. Second home run of the year. Good for him. It'd be nice to see that bat come around, just given the prospect pedigree. 3,800, 2,600, second base eligibility on both sides. You can also play him at shortstop. He's got the talent to pay that off. We just need the consistency to come around. Right now, it doesn't look great, but it's only 52 plate appearances this year. The small sample from last year. Give the kid time. Ramon Urias, I mentioned anytime he's in the lineup. That is an appealing bat down lineup. Over 43 plate appearances. He's yet to homer, but he's off to a good start. 352 xWOBA with pretty good slash line. 12.5% barrels. The power will come. Urias is not a star by any means, but he had 11 home runs in 301 plate appearances from the bottom of the lineup at 0 ownership and 0 price all of last year. 169 ISO. The year before, just 4 in 396 plate appearances wasn't good, but 16 in 445 the season before that, very much like the output that we got in 2024. So I think he's always a viable bat, and nobody goes there. He's always cheap. I like him better with the second base eligibility for 25 on FanDuel. But now that we've got two other guys with second base eligibility who are more appealing, that becomes a little bit moot. But a playable piece, this lineup goes 1 through 9 for sure. Oh, man, ranking this one's difficult. They're like dead even. I'm going to put Bybee at the top. I'm going to have some faith. Tanner Bybee, but very closely followed by Guardians bats. I'm going to go Orioles bats, then Guardians bats, but that's essentially a tie as it is in Vegas, 4-3-2, 4-2-7. Not much difference between the implied totals. The reason I would rank it that way, despite much more appeal targeting Sugano with bats, is just because the Orioles lineup plays 9 deep, where the Guardians lineup is really more 6-man. That's really the only difference there, and it's still very, very close. Wouldn't really consider Sugano. Even at 6 on DK, a couple darts as a bargain bin SP2 is all you're really getting there, and you really need him to complete the 5th inning and be at all good. He gives up, even 2 runs, and it's going to shoot you in the foot. Lorenzen, Reese Olson. Lorenzen's off to an okay start. 3.71 ERA with a 3.57 xFIP, 19.4% Ks, 5.6% walks, a 10.3% swinging strike rate. He's given up premium contact, but it hasn't really burnt him in his 3 starts. Last year, over 24, 130 and a third, right around the same level as far as the strikeouts go, but way too many walks at 11.2%. Weak CSW at 25.7. The swinging strikes weren't as high as they were. Stuff plus is almost a dead match year over year. The barrels, the premium contact, fairly similar. He can be effective in spots for sure. We've seen it, but not an overly appealing pitcher. 2 years ago, it was 17.8% walks, so the Ks are going to be right in that 17 to 19% range. 7.5% walks, a lot more reasonable that season, but 4.180 ERA, a 4.68 xFIP, kind of high. That's what you expect from Lorenzen. He's a 4 to 5 run pitcher typically. Not a ton of strikeout upside. This is a good Tigers lineup. What you do have them pushing in his direction is that 26.6% strikeout rate. Same group of hitters last year, 25.7%. So there are Ks available. It might be a day where you get Lorenzen to a 1-4, which would be a big number for him. But that's part of what's impacting the Tigers being pushed down the board a little bit. You also have just some lower projections on Creedler down the bottom, drawing down the average. Dylan Dingler, not a DFS darling as far as where he projects to. So it does draw down the 9-man average somewhat. But like I mentioned before, 1 through 5 in this Tigers lineup, very appealing. Or at least 4 of those 5 hitters. I don't think that much of Zach McKinstry. This is a super playable Tigers team. 4.40 in Vegas. Definitely suggestive of upside. They're not playing up for a ton of power in the home run model. Kind of mid numbers, but nobody's expensive in this lineup on DraftKings. Very easy to reach. Who's the most expensive? Glaber's the most expensive player in the lineup at 43. Everybody else that you would want is under 4. That's actually stupid. I didn't really process the DK pricing. Look at the difference DK to FanDuel in terms of where those prices are. Like FanDuel got it right. I don't understand how DK has them so cheap. Where did they rank out for DK value? That's weird. That's not really coming through properly on that stacks board. I'm gonna make sure to edit that after this show's over. I know that'll be pushing toward when this slate starts, but the Tigers should look better on that stacks board than they do. It's just a couple low overall projections at the bottom here, like I said, that are kind of drawing that average down that I use, and that also has an impact on the points per dollar number that I use. But I should have nudged that more than I did, which was not at all, because they're too cheap here against this pitcher. Very appealing. Secondary stack, 3-man stack, 5-man stack on DraftKings. I think you can go nuts at those prices. It's a shame there's not better pitching to pile on top of those Tigers prices. If you're going in that direction, Glaber off the top is a priority. 4,300, the most expensive bat on the team. 32 on FanDuel. He's super playable at second base. Off to an okay start. He was hurt for a little while, missed 10 days on the IL, but 308, 379, 462, a solid 345 xWOBA. He's going to be up there doing Glaber things, which is limiting strikeouts, hopefully drawing some walks, setting the table for the young hitters to follow. I really like the option as a cheap play at second base with a little bit of individual upside and with plenty of correlated scoring potential. Kerry Carpenter right behind him, 17.8% barrels, 51.1% hard hits. He's hit 5 home runs already this year. He's got a 300 plus ISO, 304, 428 xWOBA so far this season, over 60 plate appearances. Kerry Carpenter is a masher. Kerry Carpenter is borderline star is a strong word, but is a tier down from that. He is a very good left-handed power bat. 3,800 is a stupid price for him. 31 on FanDuel is low. McKinstry at 34 is honestly fine. He's not that appealing. 2,800 on FanDuel, 269, 381, 404. He's just a cog in the machine. Hitting third makes sense because he'll reset the table for Torkelson and Green if Carpenter clears it. So I get why he's there, but he's the lowest priority guy in that top 5. Still very playable. The multi-position on FanDuel helps, but not as much as you'd think because you want Glaber at second base already. So you can work your way around McKinstry. He's not a priority in 3-mans. You would definitely prefer Torkelson or Green along with Glaber and Carpenter. Torque off to a great start with 6 home runs on the board, a 409 xWOBA, more importantly, 181 WRC plus, 348 ISO so far, mashing the ball like he's supposed to. 18.6% barrels, 53.5% hard hits. This is the best version we've seen of him so far. He's been great over 79 plate appearances. Incredibly small sample. It might all crumble underneath him, but right now, looking like the player he's supposed to be. 5.65 in the home run model, maybe not quite doing him justice for the power upside. Riley Green at 5.76. You could say the same thing. Green's got 3 home runs on the board. He's got a 234 xWOBA, which is concerning. A lot of bad results so far, and not a great underlying metric for him, but a good hitter. 44.7% hard hits this year. The barrels are way down, which is part of where that xWOBA is gone. Part of why the ISO is under 200 right now. But I think we come roaring back to life. We've got too much good the last 2 seasons. 416 plate appearances at 288, 349, 447, 11 home runs on the board, and then came back last year, 262, 348, 479, a 217 ISO, 24 homers, created runs 35% better than average. We're going back to those numbers. He didn't just suddenly lose his talent. Dylan Dingler is playable. He does have a very solid 12.5% barrel rate, 53.1% hard hits in a small sample, 46 plate appearances, handful of batted ball events. He's hit 2 out of the park, 222 ISO, 371 xWOBA. For a cheap catcher, or an affordable catcher anyway, it's difficult to argue with. On FanDuel, you definitely would prefer Torque at the 35, even fully priced, to the catcher bat at 28. But if you're building a lot of Tiger stacks, you could definitely build in some where you've got both those guys. Colt Keith is an alternative at second base. You do get the lefty bat with some power upside there. Has not done much at the major league level. 65 bad plate appearances so far this year. Pretty weak season last year. What I will point out is the 354 on base that can hopefully keep him afloat, and the 344 xWOBA that kind of jibes with that, but really has not made good contact. He's getting there with just walks right now. Trey Sweeney, Ryan Creedler, mix and match pieces down toward the bottom of the lineup. Sweeney, the more talented of those 2 players. I don't know that I want to occupy shortstop with Trey Sweeney, though. If we're taking Royals, we're targeting Reese Olson, who's pretty good. The numbers so far this year don't look great. 6.0 ERA, a 3.93 xFIP, just a 9.4% swinging, a 19.4% strikeout rate. He's walked 11.9% in his 3 starts. That amounts to 3 strikeouts, 3 walks in his most recent start. That was 4 1/3 against Minnesota. He gave up 4 earned on 6 hits. 5 strikeouts, 3 walks against the White Sox. That was a rough DFS start, given that it was only 5 Ks. He gave up 2 earned runs on 7 hits in that one over 6 innings. You did get the quality start if you were looking for it on FanDuel, but not the upside day we were expecting from a good pitcher like Reese Olson against that team. First start came against the Dodgers. He gave up 4 earned on 4 hits, struck out 5, walked 2, allowed a homer, but it's the Dodgers. Last year, over 112 1/3, 21.7% Ks, 12% swing, 12.7% swinging strike rate. Not a darling of stuff plus models. 10 points below average as far as the stuff goes. The physics as the ball travels through space-time. 95 is up a little bit this season. He was looking better by Pro Stuff Plus metrics in spring, if I remember correctly. But we've got at least enough sample to say that he's demonstrably good at getting by with that stuff. 2 years ago, in 103 and 2/3 over 18 starts, 24.4% strikeout rate, 7.8% walks. He's not an ace, but he's a talented 3-starter. And on a slate like this, that's all we have to work with. So at 7,300, 7,700 with one of the better projections on the board, I'm interested. I worry a little bit about the matchup against the low strikeout Royals. That number's pushed up a little bit in the average because we've got Drew Waters in there with a small sample monster strikeout rate. We do have a few targets, though. Kevin Biggio, definitely gettable for Ks. Kyle Isbell is gettable for strikeouts down toward the bottom. Sal has been more vulnerable so far this year to the strikeout, but last year, not as bad. Year before was similar to this year, so you can consider Sal somewhat of a strikeout target. Not off to a great start with the bat either. It's kind of a got to have faith in Olsen's talent spot, but Vegas also sees it that way. 3.69 implied total for the Royals side. So I think the Olsen upside is definitely in play. The price is right to find out. So I think you just go there. Meanwhile, I'm just realizing I didn't put any placeholder lineups in. We'll get it later. So if we're looking at Royals bats against, and again, all 10 teams I do think are in play, they'll probably be lower owned given that Vegas total, given the fact that they're not really breaking the top of anybody's home run boards or anything like that today. You've got very good options in this lineup. Jonathan India, not off to a great start. We need him to be getting on base better than 310, but the 343 xWOBA suggests that it's right around the corner. He'll come roaring back. He's been banged up and in and out of the lineup a couple times already in odd spots. But whenever he's there, he's going to be in the leadoff spot, and he's appealing in that role. He's like a 15 home run, 15 stolen base guy as well, so you can get a little bit of individual upside. But what we're looking for is the correlated scoring for a cheap price. Greatly prefer him at second base, though. You don't have that on DraftKings. Third base, outfield, you probably want him in the outfield and then take a higher end corner infield option. But he's playable in either role. Bobby Witt is a superstar at 58, 4,000, 310, 383, 493, 423 xWOBA. 2 home runs, 5 steals. Nothing not to like about that. Vinny Pasquantino was calling him the best player in baseball the other day. He's top 5 at worst. Top 3 is very fair to say. Pasquantino himself just at 39.29. He's at a 200, 284, 354 start. I promise you that's not going to continue for long. He's too good a hitter to keep that up. Love the bat on ball, the high frequency of bat on ball, and the quality of contact. We've talked about a power breakout being available for him if he just starts elevating the swing plane a little bit more. We'll see what he does. He's also tinkering with the swing a little bit right now. I talked about that after he talked about it on Central the other day about his bat speed going up. So it's creating a little bit of havoc in the line right now. This is going to look way better later, and you just get him cheap now at 39.29 at first base. Priority bat if you're going to Royals. Sal's also a priority as long as he still has catcher eligibility and doesn't give you the conflict with Vinny Pasquantino. You're A+ over on DraftKings. Matters less on FanDuel. He is putting up similar numbers so far to Vinny. 2 home runs apiece for those guys. The difference so far, Sal's hitting the ball a lot better. 391 xWOBA so far. 17.3% barrels, 48.1% hard hits. Some bad luck baked into the numbers for Sal Pettis so far. I expect that bat to come roaring to life at some point. Mike Massey, mix and match piece. 172, 194, 219 isn't doing anything for anybody. 226 xWOBA is not doing anything for anybody. The contact has been bad. He's low strikeout, needs to draw some more walks or put more quality bat on ball. Second base on DraftKings makes him playable. On FanDuel, I would rather just go to Jonathan India at the second base position for 300 more if I'm using that spot from this team. Michael Garcia is an interesting bat. A lot of skill there in terms of the speed upside. Some lurking power in there too. 57.1% hard hit so far. He's essentially doubled the barrel rate in a small sample so far. Needs to keep that up. Keep driving the ball. 2 home runs on the board. A 342 xWOBA suggests that upside is there. 167 ISO to start the season. 9% better than average creating runs. If he gets on, he's going to be running. He's only got 1 stolen base so far this year, but that is part of his skill set. Really interesting DFS player late in the lineup at 42.28. Cheap pricing. Another player I would put at second base on FanDuel. But he's more playable at third, I think, than Jonathan India might be. Well, that might not be fair to say. Better lineup spot for India and capable of similar numbers on any given slate as far as the mid-grade power and some speed. Biggio, Waters, Isbell, just replacement level parts at the bottom of this lineup. You can mix any one of them into an abundance of Royal stacks. Not a one of those guys is a priority. Reese Olson. I'm going to flip from where the board is at. I really regret not moving the Tigers up earlier. I'm going to put the Tigers on top of the Royals bats. And then we'll say Royals bats after that, and then probably Michael Lorenzen last. But I do think you can play any one of these four corners pretty easily on either slate. Like Lorenzen is definitely not off the board with the strikeout upside that comes with facing the Tigers. 6 clean innings and 5 or 6 strikeouts. It's within reach. And that would play up today. So this is very much a day of me saying everything's on the board. You can play whatever you want. Sorry. Did Soderstrom hit another one? Are they playing right now? He's ridiculous. Talked about him quite a bit so far this season. But I think it was Lar brought up yesterday the park is going to be on his side, and only a couple. Yep, he did another one. Only a couple of those have come in that home park so far. So major upside. Is Soderstrom like the good version of this Aaron Judge guy, says Ricky? He might be like a left-handed Pete Alonso. Masher of baseballs for sure. Speaking of the Yanks, looking pretty solid on the board. You can see Mr. Judge in the 2 spot in this projected lineup, carrying a mark that is double the magic number on the home run model. Didn't make him the home run pick of the day. He's also not hitting second. He's hitting third because Aaron Boone continues to mismanage this lineup, but that's okay. Drops to third, still above the magic number, double the magic number at 20.13. That also gives us, what was it, Goldie sliding up to the top spot? That gives us another bat above the magic number. Where was that a second ago? Yeah, so Goldie goes from just under to just over, moving up from the cleanup spot to the leadoff spot. Little power upgrade comes with the bonus plate appearances there. So Goldie, Ben Rice, Judge, Bellinger, Jazz Chisholm, who's the home run pick of the day. All interesting bats. Bellinger just under the magic number at 9.35. The other guys above them, the number. I was tempted to make Ben Rice the pick, like I said, but didn't want to get, seem completely homery about it. So I went with a scuffling Jazz Chisholm Jr., who's down at 176, 273, 471, but is carrying a 358 xWOBA, has 6 home runs on the board, and has a 20.9% barrel rate with 41.9% hard hits in the small sample. Jazz remains very good. They're traveling to Florida where it's 85 degrees, which is going to help everybody in this ballpark, but it's also going to help Jazz feel more at home. He was complaining about the cold weather, as I've mentioned a couple times, really doesn't like it. So getting down to the balmy Florida temps, not like it was terrible in the New York area the last couple of days. It's been 50s, 60s, and he's been warming up a little bit. But this should be a big bump to Jazz and get him back in gear. Had a great start to his season, and then that cold snap hit, and he completely declined. 5,500, 3,400 at second base. Very appealing bat, hitting 6 for the Yanks today. They're going up against Taj Bradley, though, before we get into the man-by-man breakdown on the Yanks. Bradley, a very talented pitcher. There's no denying it. Out of the gate with a 3.71 ERA, but a 3.11 xFIP underneath that. 30.9% strikeout rate over 3 starts, 17 innings. That amounts to 7 strikeouts exactly in each of his 3 starts. First one was against the Rockies. He went 6, struck out 7, allowed 2 earned. Didn't walk anybody notably in that game. Against the Rangers, he had an okay outing. He struck out 7 over 5 innings, faced 21 hitters, but he walked 4, which is where the bumps come in with Taj Bradley a lot of the time. He also gave up 2 home runs, which is the other bump with Taj Bradley. 4 earned runs total on 2 hits. The third outing was against the Braves. Another good spot. The Braves were showing power in this ballpark in that game. Struck out 7, walked 2, just 1 earned run on 5 hits, no home run allowed notably. So he could easily go out there, strike out 7 or 8 of these Yankees, come away with 6 clean innings, as long as he avoids the walks and the long ball. The thing working against him is these Yankees are excellent at drawing their walks. So if he's erratic at all, which is his game, 26.5% CSW despite an 11.9% swinging strike rate. Tells you everything you need to know about that. So I expect the Yanks to be on base. I expect them to have opportunities. Whether he punches his way out of any trouble that he gets into is going to be another part of the equation, of course. But with the power that the Yankees are showing, with the ballpark on everybody's side as far as bats, it just makes sense that this is a high priority stack today. I do think, though, that Bradley is equally playable. You could look at it as an almost 1-to-1. Every Yankee stack, you'd grab a share of Taj in a different lineup. Same going the other way. Every Taj share, you grab a Yankee stack in another lineup, or some similar distribution. Between the two, I would favor the Yankees bats. Given the ballpark, given the just bats that are in that lineup and all the power upside that they're showing. But it's close, and Taj projects out great. He's very expensive as well on a day where everybody else is cheap. That has to factor in somewhere, but you got to think that that'll keep the ownership maybe a little bit lighter than it ought to be. And he's probably got the highest ceiling on the day, even with the downside coming from facing the Yanks. So very much a both-sided equation there. Will Warren, I think he could probably get away from a little bit easier than Taj Bradley, but I do think he's good for the money. 77, 8,000, not a bad price. There is upside for strikeouts. This Tampa lineup, Richie Palacios is currently screwing up our average there. I got to change that so it just displays zeros. Right now, it's just 17.9%. It's getting a bump from Jake Magnum's low number. But some of their better bats, you can get in the mid-20s. There were more strikeouts with some of those better bats last year in the mid-20s and the upper 20s when it gets down to some weaker bats in Ben Rortvedt, Taylor Walls down toward the bottom of the lineup. So there are Ks available here for Warren. He's off to an okay start at 26.3% strikeouts and 11% swinging strike rate, a phenomenal 33.5% CSW. Might be working in the zone a little bit too much overall. 5 innings in his most recent start, which is indicative of kind of what the problem with Will Warren, I think, is going to be in most of these outings. I think we're going to very rarely see him close out the 6th inning. It's just in Boone's nature. If a pitcher walks somebody in the starting the 6th inning, he hooks them. He's got a very, very quick 6th inning hook, with, especially around pitchers like this, younger pitchers, or back of the rotation guys. So he's very much a 5 innings, thank you very much, you qualify for the win, go sit down kind of a manager in that way. And it shows in Warren's game log the last couple games. 5 innings, faced only 19 hitters, allowed 2 earned runs, one home run, struck out 6, walked 2 against the Giants the other day. Could have easily come out for a 6th inning in that game. 4 innings against the Pirates was his worst start of the year. He gave up 4 earned on 6 hits. He struck out 5 in that game, though. Didn't give up a home run. If I remember correctly, a little bit of dink and dunk to death there. 2 earned runs in his first start. That was against a very good Arizona lineup. He only allowed 1 hit in that game. He struck out 4, but he had a problematic day with walks. He walked 4 in that one. So we got to wrangle the stuff a little bit. For somebody who's got such a high-end CSW, you would think that the walks would be a little lower, but that's not been the case so far. There is a lot of upside with the pitcher. It's just, again, the ballpark works big time against pitching. The power-hitting lefties that are in this Rays lineup work big time against this righty. 13.16 in the home run model, notably for Brandon Lau. Junior Caminero dropping a couple spots in the lineup. He was projected in the 3 spot. John D was in the leadoff spot. They went a different direction, but Caminero maintained his above the magic number mark in the home run model at 11.44. He's hit 4 already this season. Lau has 3. Everybody in the top of the lineup has at least 3. This is a good power hitting Rays team, and it's going to work really, really well in this park all season long. There's a reason, by the way, that we've gotten so many Rays home games that kind of front loaded the schedule, because MLB knows that this park is going to play like Coors Plus during the season when it's 94 degrees in Florida. So they tried to get as many games into the cooler temps as possible. But as mentioned, it's 85 degrees down there today. Ball's going to fly. So Goldie, leadoff spot. Again, that number went up a little bit. Mad Max says, Soderstrom's going to eat at you all year, Terry. I know the feeling. You have a guy in your sights and someone steals him like a thief in the night. Yeah. Not to mention the fact that every time he hits a home run, my buddy Lou sends a text kind of like that. Soderbaum, my team may suck, but at least I kept him from Terry. I've gotten like 9 of those so far this year, or 8 of those, whatever his total is now. So, yeah. That's going to be painful. And not only that, it's a dynasty league. So Lou's going to continue to send me that text for the next 10 years if this guy turns into something. Paulie Goldschmidt in the top spot, 4,500, great price, 2,900, great price, 404 xWOBA to start the season. So the surface level numbers are looking very, very real right now for the former MVP. 348, 397, 470, a 151 WRC plus, just one homer on the board. Not exactly drilling the ball, 7.3% barrels and 38.2% hard hits. But if he's just differently focused right now, it might pay off big time for this hitter. So I'm really interested in the Goldschmidt shares with the low price. The issue on DraftKings is it does keep you from Ben Rice. 4,100 for him, 4,500 for Goldie. You get the lefty bat and Rice. Either way with those guys, I think you're alternating shares in an abundance of Yankee stacks today. Rice is making absurd, unsustainable contact, I think. But I was expecting a lot of barrels, something like the 15% barrels from last year in the small sample. That's what this kid does. He's a discerning hitter. He barrels the ball. He is a decent bat. He's just dramatically overperforming even our wildest expectations so far this year. 472 xWOBA, though. 345 ISO underneath that. 188 WRC plus, 5 homers on the board. Lefty bat in this ballpark. Remember, this is the Yankees' home park, transplanted to Florida. Same dimensions as Yankee Stadium. So these lefties going to be taking pokes at that short porch in right. And in this weather, it's going to be easier to get there than it is in Yankee Stadium. Aaron Judge at 65-46. Again, doubling the magic number in the home run model. I think that's appealing. 7 on the board. He's also leading baseball at 409. 409, 519, 803 with a 394 ISO, a 499 xWOBA, and he's created runs 173% better than average so far. Do you think you're interested in that hitter in this ballpark? I am. Cody Bellinger, 5,000, 3,200. Still don't understand really why Cody is at 5,000 when Ben Rice and Paul Goldschmidt are at 45 and 41, but there it is. Same thing on FanDuel. At least they've got Rice higher price than Goldie, or than Belly. Goldie still being lower price than both those hitters is just a little weird, but it makes things more workable. You can get to these combinations easier because of those low prices. And Bellinger's better than 3,200 on FanDuel. He's better probably by a couple $100 than 5,000 on DraftKings when it's all said and done. Not off to a good start. 185, 242, 296, a 275 xWOBA underneath that, just one home run on the board. But the 53.8% hard hits is at least appealing. He's striking out way more than usual at 29%, maybe pressing a little bit to pay off the pinstripes. I think Bellinger settles in. We come back down into the teens as far as the Ks go, and everything works out okay for the lefty. So continue to go there. And again, lefty bats, very appealing in this ballpark. Anthony Volpe, mix and match quality shortstop, power upside for sure. 4 home runs, 2 steals on the board, barreling a lot of balls early in the season. But remains very much a work in progress. Too many strikeouts. The power upside is nice. The 250 ISO is nice. 326 xWOBA is around the average, but suggestive of upside. If he draws more walks like he has so far in the small sample, that makes him more appealing because he'll run more. So more playable for DFS probably than he is a high-quality real-life shortstop. But even for DFS, despite the spot in the middle of the lineup, he's not the most appealing shortstop on the board by a pretty wide margin. Jazz is very interesting, 55 at second base on DraftKings, 34 at second base on FanDuel, 6 home runs, 4 steals. As mentioned, home run pick of the day. Everything about the power of the premium contact is right where it's supposed to be. The 294 ISO, the 358 xWOBA, 20.9% barrels, all despite the week-long slump that he went through. Love the upside for Jazz today. Home run pick of the day at 10.41 in the model. JC Escada, the minor leaguer who made the team out of camp. Nice story. Not much of a major league bat. You'll get 3. If he plays all season, you'll get 3 oddball home runs out of the lefty. Maybe one of them comes in this ballpark, but not much upside there. 3,000 feels a little high. He should be more like mid-price. Justin Dominguez at 44-28. Very interesting bat. Get him from the left side today as well because he's a switch hitter. 1 home run on the board, 2 stolen bases. Seems to be heating up a little bit. Still only a 294 xWOBA, overperforming that with a 126 WRC plus. And we know what the power outburst can look like from the kid. So I think we just ride with that price, and you can use him as a decent wraparound option. He's getting on at a 355 clip so far this year. Oswaldo Cabrera, mix and match infielder at best, not much of a bat. If you're looking at Rays with that 5.4 implied total, Cameron Misner, lefty bat there, 39-29. He's hit 3 home runs to start his year, 385 xWOBA. He's created runs 133% better than average over his 49 plate appearances. Double-digit barrels, 50+% hard hits while not striking out. He's been very, very appealing, and he becomes more so jumping into the leadoff role against Will Warren here. So a lot of upside there. They're loading up some lefties up top. Brandon Lau at 49, too cheap on DraftKings for the power upside. 12.8% barrels, 48.9% hard hits, right where you want him. He's going to strike out. He'll pad your lineup with zeros sometimes, but the power is very, very real from the second baseman. One of the more appealing second base options on the slate. Ignore the 145 ISO. He's hit 3 home runs already. The xWOBA at 381 tells more of the story about what the actual power upside looks like. Johnny Diaz at just 42.27. Love the option. 3 home runs on the board. Dipped in the lineup today. Righty bat. They wanted to move the lefty up there. He's also kind of scuffling over his first handful of plate appearances here. He will be absolutely fine. 324 xWOBA is okay. 92 WRC plus. He's hit 3 home runs. What he's not doing is hitting for average like he usually does, getting on base like he usually does. The 266 on base is a major outlier for that hitter. That is not who he is. Last year, 341. Created runs 20% better than average while hitting 14 home runs, /281, 341, 414. Year before that was even better, 334, 10, 522 /line with 22 homers. That's who Yandy Diaz is. Jonathan Aranda, 43, 30,000. Positional conflict with Diaz, which sucks on DraftKings. Much easier to use on the FanDuel slate with the second base eligibility with the addition of the util spot. He's at 396, 464, 729. Did not really see this coming so far. 20.5% barrels, 59% hard hits in the tiny sample, a 482 xWOBA. Doesn't say it's sustainable, but says that at least so far it's been real. 333 ISO is ridiculous. 144% better than average for run creation over his whopping 56 plate appearance sample. None of this means anything yet, but it's an encouraging start. He's still cheap despite that start. You're just looking for quality bat on ball, but I do hate the positional conflict there. With Yandy 100 cheaper, might consider that. Depends on what that $100 buys you. But both guys very much in play if you're building more than one. Caminero, as mentioned, major option in this lineup. High priority bat. 226 ISO to start his season. 354 xWOBA. 4 home runs on the board. Looking every bit the part of a breakout star. Kid is going to be good, and he's right there. It hasn't been much in the show so far. Last season, 177 decent plate appearances. 177. 6 home runs. The 299 on base was a disappointment. 176 ISO and created runs 5% better than average in the small sample. It was an okay start, but he's arrived now. 12.5% barrels, 50% hard hits. I expect this all to continue for this hitter. Reggie Palacios is at best, mix and match option for a very cheap price. Second base eligible, I guess, is okay. Jake Magnum continues to go up in price and not be a major league hitter. 352 on base and 7 stolen bases is all you've really gotten out of him so far. So whatever that's worth is what Jake Magnum will give you. Ben Rortvedt, Taylor Walls, not much of bats down lineup. So this lineup does get very short very fast. You're talking about a 5-man lineup, and those are the 5 guys that everybody and their brother is going to stack from this team if they go to this team, and you can't play 2 of them together on DraftKings. So maybe it's better utilized as a 3-man DK stack. You can stretch to 4 more easily on the FanDuel slate. Yankees bats, Rays bats, Taj Bradley, Will Warren, all 4 corners very much in play. Bunch of people here. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're new, the site is rotoscouts.com. Access to all the baseball data, all our NBA projections for every main slate through the playoffs, all of our NHL projections, line combinations, power play units, all confirmed every day. All under $1 a day. No per sport fees. No surprise. It was $1 a day this week, but next week it's $5. None of that shit. Subscribe. Weekly, monthly, quarterly plans over at rotoscouts.com. Give it a look. Sounds like Logan O'Hop is back. All lineups are confirmed for this slate. 427. Beautiful. 2 hours out. I love baseball. Basketball, it's 30 seconds before lock, and they still won't tell you whether a guy's playing baseball. It's hours before, and they're like, oh yeah, here's who's playing. Why would we keep that secret? It would be more valuable to keep it secret in baseball than in basketball. It's absurd what they do in basketball. Anyway, if you can't tell, I'm so glad the NBA regular season is over. Andre Palante, 8,700, 9,100. Priced up too high. I talked about it at the beginning of the show. This is in no way an ace. What he is an effective pitcher for clean innings, if that makes sense, but he's not going to chase big strikeout totals. 4 Ks in his last game against Philly. He did hit 6 against the Red Sox in an oddball start at Fenway Park. 4 1/3, struck out 6, but walked 3, allowed a home run, 2 earned on 4 hits. First game struck out just 3 against Minnesota, walked 2, gave up a home run in that game as well, which is kind of uncharacteristic for him, given that he pitches to a negative 0.1 degree average launch angle so far this year. Last year, 1.1 with a 1.57% home run rate over 20 starts. Year before, in 68 innings as a reliever, that was negative 11.5. That's the biggest number I can remember for like a semi-complete sample. Like Frommer's got a year of negative 3 and change and also a negative 5 in there somewhere. I'm sure there are other relievers where it's down that low, but that is like elite ability to keep the ball down, obviously. Sub 2% home run rates each of those 2 years. The 2 home runs, the point being the 2 home runs that he's given up this year, just kind of happenstance, a little bit oddball, but not a high-end stuff pitcher. Just a guy out there who's going to induce ground balls, not really strike that many guys out. The swinging strike rate is much more realistically last year's number than the small sample number from this year. If he keeps this up, he immediately does become more interesting. But even with that slight uptick in the small sample, we're only up by a point and still sub 20%. He walked 9.4% last year, allowed way too many guys on base because ground ball pitchers do that. Ground ball to the right spot equals a base hit. And if you're walking that many guys, you're just allowing too much opportunity. So while he doesn't tend to give up the big blast, you can kind of dink and dunk your way to success against Palante. And the Mets have plenty of guys who can wait out a walk. They have plenty of guys who can draw a base hit. They're relatively low strikeout overall. Everybody in the top 5 in the lineup so far this year, below 20% strikeouts. Last year was up and down. You know, some guys in the mid-20s. Vientos pushed a 29.8%. We'll see if he can maintain sub 20. That would be a major uptick in for his talent. But it's not a very gettable Mets lineup for a pitcher like Palante. I do think 6 innings of 2-3 run ball is on the table. If all goes well, he could give you 6 clean innings, but you're coming out of that with probably 4 strikeouts at most. For 87.91, it just doesn't really fit the dynamics of this slate. The hope would be that he'd be low owned. Haven't really looked at ownership numbers. I guess I could pull them up. Let's just jump to DraftKings. That's what everybody cares about. Per our friends over at the site that most of you guys know where I'm looking at the ownership from. Yeah, one of the lowest owned options, single digit option. That would be the appeal in Palante. Just get him as a bit of a differentiator. Doesn't project out well, doesn't come with a lot of ceiling, and you're paying too much for it. But you could get him at sub 10% ownership. That's the only real upside for it. But I guess it matters less price-wise, given that everybody else is in the 7,000s, unless you're just putting him with Taj Bradley. It's actually fine because your average price, your 2-man price, isn't going to be all that high. I don't really like the option on FanDuel. I think it's really mispriced at 91. But the fact that rendered him sub 10% as far as popularity on this particular slate does make that slightly more interesting. Don't get excited about it. Don't go run off and prioritize it. But it does make it slightly more playable, in my opinion, if people aren't going there. I would much rather have the Mets lineup, but you can see they're at just a 4.0 implied total. That's suggestive of exactly what Palante does coming through. You can see the impact that he has on the home run numbers. Even Pete Alonso at just 5.76. Juan Soto at 5.68. Those players have 8 home runs combined this year. 200 ISO on the board for Soto, a 3.54 xWOBA. Pete Alonso carrying a 4.99 xWOBA so far with 5 home runs on the board, a 3.65 ISO, creating runs 130% better than average for the team that didn't really want him, and none of the other 29 teams did either, so he came back anyway. Mark Vientos is cheap at 39. We are below the $4,000 threshold on Vientos. DraftKings hates Mark Vientos. He's kind of deserving of a bit of a dip so far this year, just 145, 254, 210. But the strikeouts coming way down is interesting. The walks going up in the small sample is interesting. If he can sustain that, I'm confident that the bat on ball will come around. Kid was a major source of power in his 450 plate appearances last year. 27 home runs in that sample size is not nothing. That is significant. 251 ISO. Very, very real power bat to throw up against a contact-oriented pitcher. The issue is the ground balls. We're very likely to just get induced very well-struck ground balls. Brendan Nimmo, 4,100, 2,900 in the heart of the Mets lineup. Get a lefty bat with some power upside there. He's barreling the ball at a 14.3% clip, 53.6% hard hit so far. Definitely an interesting hitter. He's hit 4 home runs, 363 xWOBA suggests that all the rest of the triple slash there is going to come around. 203, 263 is uncharacteristic on the front side of that. 217 ISO is right where you want it. 94 WRC plus should come up along with all those other numbers. Francisco Lindor in the top spot in their lineup is a superstar. Ignore the slow start. This happened last year. Going through the exact same thing. The strikeouts, the walks are right where they're supposed to be. The quality of contact is roughly where it's supposed to be outside of a few missed barrels. That'll catch up in a hurry. He was right around this last year, and I was saying, don't panic, don't panic, don't panic. And we ended the season at 32 home runs, 29 steals, 36% better than average for run creation, a 223 ISO, 272, 344, 496. I think we'll be okay. Starlin Marte starts the thinning out of the bottom of the lineup, but this is a like 7.5 man lineup, I guess. We're including Marte in the top 6 there, 39-27. He's off to a slow start, but the skill set is good for DFS. Base hit oriented player with a little, moderate 12 type home run power upside. Should steal 15 to 20 bases as long as he's getting on consistently. So far this season, barreling the ball 9.1% of the time, showing a little bit of upside there. The 292 xWOBA is a little bit disappointing over his 36 plate appearances. We'll see where he ends up, but the quality's been there over the last few seasons, so I do think he's a playable option. Luis Torrens is more of a defensively oriented catcher, but he's off to a decent start with the bat, so for just a cheap building block, 3,100, 2,500, it's perfectly fine to work him into a few stacks of Mets if you're building a lot of them. But again, they're at a limited overall implied total. So do we really want to go mining for a weak hitting catcher overall from the bottom of the lineup from one of the lower implied total teams on the board? That said, 16.1% barrels, 54.8% hard hits so far this year with a 412 xWOBA over his 42 plate appearances. Brett Beatty for just 24-22 is a mix and match infielder with second base eligibility on both sides, which is where you'd want him. You're just buying a lefty stick, but there's not a ton of power upside available against this pitcher. Beatty does make good contact when he's going well, and that's the one thing that's been there for him this year. 8.3% barrels, 50% hard hits. And then Tyrone Taylor, I'm typically looking for against the lefty. I'm typically looking for when there's some home run upside because he's just cheap and sneaky down the bottom of the lineup. I don't think this is the day for Taylor. There's that Tampa ballpark on TV right now. Nice sunny day. Griff Canning, 74-71, projects out fairly okay. He's off to a Canning-esque start, allowing some barrels, way too many hard hits, way too much exit velo. Has not burnt him completely yet. He's actually kept the ball down a little bit at a 9.4 degree average launch. That's not exactly characteristic, but maybe it's emblematic of a change that he's made coming over to the Mets as far as just inducing a few more ground balls or cutting launch angle a little bit. That's resulted in last start was 5 1/3 against the Athletics. He allowed 4 earned runs with a home run on the board, 3 strikeouts, 3 walks. The start in the middle was effective over just 4 innings, faced 19 Blue Jays, struck out 6, but walked 3. The pitch count got up, gave up 1 earned run on 4 hits. The deepest start was 5 2/3 in the first outing against Houston. Fairly effective. 2 earned runs on 4 hits against a very good Astros lineup. Allowed a home run, struck out 4, walked 2. Not an upside start, but not a disaster either. We've seen over the years some of that from Canning. There's a little bit of back and forth. Last year, mostly disaster. 4+% home run rate. We were targeting him most of the season, a lot with lefty bats. 5.19 ERA with a 4.75 xFIP on the board, just a 17% strikeout rate. Year before, a lot of good. 4.32 ERA was shaky, but a 3.82 xFIP underneath that. Had a 25.9% strikeout rate against a 6.7% walk rate, 12.8% swinging strike rate. Allowed power still. He's a fly ball oriented pitcher that allows way too much premium contact, way too many barrels and hard hits. So that does result in home runs. But there's upside for this pitcher. I guarantee you this is why the Mets signed him. That result, that CSW, the Mets have elite pitching development experts. They are one of the elite organizations when it comes to that. Very, very smart. So the idea that they can develop Canning out to be what he is supposed to be is at least interesting. But it hasn't really come through yet, and I don't think we get too excited about it going up against a at least moderately good Cards lineup with a few interesting lefty bats. So very playable on this particular slate at just 74-71. One of the mid-board pitchers on that pitching slate. So I definitely think you fire away with Canning to your heart's content with reasonable expectations for what his actual success rates are going to look like. But I do think it's a situation where you're rostering Canning and then your next lineup, you build a Cardinal stack because there is a lot of upside going the other way. You've got Gorman above the magic number for home run upside. You've got Wilson Contreras above the magic number for home run upside. 9.39 on Lars Nootbaar in the leadoff spot is interesting to me for a very good lefty bat. The 358 implied total for the Cards, to me, feels a little bit low. I can jive more with the 4 implied total for the Mets. I think this should have been more even up. If you're looking at Cards bats, again, I do think it's a good idea to draw some shares against Canning, whether you're rostering Canning or not. Nootbaar, 4,600, 3,400. The FanDuel price is more correct than the DraftKings price. 47.3% hard hits this year. Last year was barreling the ball and had a great hard hit rate. Doesn't really strike out that much. Draws plenty of walks. Could be problematic for a pitcher like Canning. If he loses Nootbaar to a couple walks, he might run. He's been on base at a 422 clip with a 403 xWOBA so far this season. 3 homers, 2 steals, showing off the entire breadth of the skill set right in that 83 plate appearance stat line. Creating runs 54% better than average so far. Contreras remains one of the top catcher bats in baseball. 1 home run, 1 steal on the board so far this season. The 271 xWOBA was way out of line with expectations. Everything about his start has been weak. The barrels are down. The hard hits are down. I don't think we sweat it. 3,600. He's a first baseman on DraftKings, which isn't ideal. Missed the catcher eligibility. That's the one downside. The bat plays way better as a catcher than it does as a first baseman. 2,700 has appealed just in the cheap price on FanDuel, and actually 36 on DraftKings. It's the same thing. So that's where you get your advantage now with Contreras, is he's a cheap first baseman with upside. And I just think we ignore the slow start there. You're going to that bat, 10.99, and the home run model tells us where we need to be. Brendan Donovan at 41-31 multi-position on both sides. Most interesting at second base. Killer start for him so far. 417 xWOBA, 172 WRC plus, slashing 380, 416, 549. We've seen stretches like this from Donovan before. He's always made pretty good contact. 40.6% hard hits 2 years ago. Was down a little bit last year in a season where we kind of expected him to be interesting coming out of camp. Fairly priced in the heart of the lineup against a pitcher who is vulnerable to lefty bats historically. It's an interesting spot. Nolan Arenado at 3,000. The decline has already begun from where he started the season. And I think it's very, very real. I talked about it all of last year, how that swing is broken. It's too slow. It's too long. Brent Rooker home run. It's just not going to, I don't think it's going to come back. I really don't. He might limit strikeouts for the season. He's at 5.4% so far this year, coming off of 14.5, 16.5 the last 2 seasons. He's always been elite at that. Maybe he draws more walks. He's doubled his walk rate so far this season in the small sample. Get on base. But I mean, this is not the Nolan Arenado that we remember. 3,000, uncomfortably priced, but playable in the heart of this lineup. He has created runs 35% better than average. But the premium contact, the power, if you can't catch up with the pitch, you're not going to be barreling the ball. You're not going to be generating hard hits. 185 ISO is pretty low for him. 292 xWOBA, more importantly. He's gone and he's not coming back, folks. I hate to break it to you. Alec Burleson, Jordan Walker, mix and match pieces at worst. Jordan Walker's an interesting hitter. A lot of bat speed there if we're looking for it. 2 home runs on the board, 2 steals. A 276 xWOBA is not exactly good, though. Not appealing, not suggestive of the upside that I do think lingers in this player. 9.5% barrels, 43.1% hard hits last year. We've talked about him a bunch of times, how the numbers over the last 2 years ago were better than he got credit for, and then they just kind of jerked him around since. Nolan Gorman, major power upside from the left side of the plate. That is my home run expectation from this lineup. 10.46 in the model today. Over 20 plate appearances, couple of batted ball events, 30.8% barrels, 53.8% hard hits. The barrels are real, 16+% over the last 2 seasons. A good season 2 years ago with 48.5% hard hits. Forget what the home run total was. He's 7 there. 27 homers in 464 plate appearances. That was his, quote unquote breakout. 402 opportunities. He was in and out of the lineup a lot last year. Sits a lot against lefties. Just 19 homers. Still at a 197 ISO. Still does hit the ball very, very hard. Just never really has much consistency. Way too many strikeouts. 37.6% last year is wildly unsustainable. 31.9 in the better season the year before was okay because he was walking at an 11.4% clip. He was creating runs in different ways. Right now, you're just looking for cheap power from down lineup. I think he might be a little bit underappreciated against this pitcher, though, at those prices. Very appealing second baseman. I'd be interested in one-off shares at second base of Nolan Gorman, just given the pure power upside. Pedro Pajes, mix and match catcher. Victor Scott, mix and match outfielder with tons of speed. 6 stolen bases on the board for Scott. As long as he's getting on at a 338 clip, he's interesting. But he's never really shown much ability at the major league level in small samples. The speed is incredibly real, though. Dude could steal in a full season of getting on at that kind of a level, 75 bases, 65, 75, something like that. If, given a full green light, but needs to get on to deliver any of that. Mets bats, Cards bats, but really it's very close. The Mets are just a much better lineup. But Palante's got all the attributes necessary to suppress that lineup, while the Cards have all the attributes necessary to succeed against Griff Canning. So it's very close between those two teams in my mind. And then for DFS upside, it's got to be Canning at the cheap prices above Andre Palante. And we've arrived at our last game, which is good because it's somehow 4:44 and we're an hour and a half into the show. How about that? Just goes like that. Hopefully it does for you guys too. And hopefully you get a lot out of it. Because I sure do a lot of talking. Athletics putting Chicago out of their misery in the 9th. Oh, yeah, Dinwiddie. Yeah. Yeah, stupid with Dallas last night. I am glad I didn't watch any of that. I did watch, the Golden State game the day before, the Golden State-Memphis game. That was a good game. That was a fun one. Two teams that I was saying to EMAC, strike me as better than play-in quality. Kind of a shame to have to lose one of those squads and not see a full series out of those two teams. But obviously, deservedly so. Where's the wind blowing in? In St. Louis? Or in New York, rather? Oh, yeah, look at that. Also in Detroit. Wind's blowing out in this one, it looks like, in a pretty big way, though. Jack Kachanowicz is on the mound for the Angels. That could be problematic for scoring. The Rangers at a 5.25 implied total, showing monster upside. That said, they came through third on the board. The totals are great, but they were passed by fantasy projection-wise just in the aggregate, and they're at 10 plus. But they were passed by both the Yankees and the Rays. The model likes that game a little bit better than this game. But major projection upside for the Rangers through the model. Reasonable enough power upside. Some of that is getting clipped by Kachanowicz so far this season at a 6-degree average launch, but has allowed some home runs, made a few mistakes in there. Year before, over 65 and a third in 11 starts, 3.6-degree average launch, just a 2.6% home run rate. Not a good pitcher, not a high strikeout guy by any means. Sub 10% strikeouts over 65 and a third in 11 starts is a disaster. A 3-to-1 strikeout to walk rate, but sub 10%. That's hilarious. 3.99 ERA, but a 4.48 xFIP underneath it, just a 7.1% swinging strike rate. If you're going to allow that kind of pitch, that kind of contact to this lineup, that gets problematic in a hurry, especially with the wind blowing out to left field. Marcus Semien is crazy cheap at 3,600, 2,700, but kind of deservingly so. We've talked about the bad season last year, down across the board in everything except for strikeouts, which were an exact match, 14.6% year over year. So far, that's up a couple percentage points. Walks are right around where they've been. But he's at 127, 200, 190. No signs of life in a 285 xWOBA. It's been a bad 70 plate appearances. Really needs to get it together. But as long as he continues leading off ahead of Corey Seager, Josh Smith, Adolis Garcia, Jock Peterson, and so on, you just go there at second base. The price is great. And he's going to have his games. Even if he has a bad season, he's going to have his days. So you just go there in stacks. What he's probably less of now is, other than just being a name at a cheap price, as a one-off second baseman. A little bit less appeal until it really starts to come around. You get him cheap, you get there early. I do think that's on the board, but it's very difficult. He's not quite flatline, but you got to get it real close to the monitor to see the heart rate right now. Corey Seager, on the other hand, 3 home runs on the board, 383 xWOBA, 135 WRC plus, mashing the ball with a 15.2% barrel rate so far, right about where we want him. A little bit more uptick in the hard hits probably to come. Love the hitter. Love the option at shortstop for under 5,000 in this game environment against this pitcher. Corey Seager should probably be the most popular player on this entire slate. Let's see if he is. Third. Interesting. Basically in a tie with Aaron Judge, which I get. Again, Judgey doubling the magic number in the home run model. And then both those players are behind a high-end pitcher that we talked about. That pitcher, who I won't name, is drawing a monster ownership share for this slate, and it actually makes him less interesting given the major upside for bats that we talked about in the game that he's appearing in. You could probably guess which one it is. Even with all that ownership, I mean, you don't sweat it for individual ownership on players like Seager and Judge as part of stacks. Where it could have more impact is if you're one-offing that shortstop share, if you're one-offing that outfield share, just make sure it's in a lineup that's otherwise differentiated and you're perfectly fine. But both those players are going to be super popular and justifiably so with the ridiculous upside that they have. Seager at just an 8.12 in the home run model could easily have gotten more. But again, Kachanowitz's ability to cut launch angle is having a little bit of an impact. The numbers from last year are having a little bit of an impact on that. So far this season, 2 home runs allowed in his second start. That was against Cleveland. He struck out 4. He walked 3. First start of the year, he allowed 1 home run, 2 earned runs on 4 hits. That was over 6 against the White Sox. Struck out 4, walked 0. And then the most recent start against the Astros, he got destroyed. 6 earned runs, 7 hits. Oddly, they didn't hit a home run. Struck out 1 and he walked 3. So that's probably the kind of start we're in line with today, where maybe they don't hit the home run, but we're still looking at like a 6-7 run total, a bunch of doubles, and pretty high quality scores. And the home run's always lurking for these players. Josh Smith, 3,500, 2,800, multi-position eligible on both sites. No real preference positionally. If you want him at third, that's fine. Probably would rather have him in the outfield, I guess, but it's close enough. 342, 432, 500 to start his year at 344 xWOBA. We've seen these stretches from Smith before. He typically tends to decline from these numbers, but as long as you catch him on the right day, he's always got at least playability. And as long as he's not priced up for overperformance, we're fine. And he's not right now. So you can easily go there. I'm realizing that the confirmed lineup is in, guys. And don't go to Josh Smith because he's not in it. Fortunately, Semien and Seager are in their spots. So we get Jock moving up to the third spot. Apologies for that. 7.25 in the home run model. Should have improved probably by a couple of points from where he was down here. Major source of left-handed power against a very weak righty. It's just everything I've said about Kachanowitz's ability to keep the ball down somewhat in a small sample is having a little impact there. Still, he's powering his way through to a 7.25, and the true number probably a little higher than that. That said, Jock's off to a terrible, terrible start. 0.065, 173, 0.087, a 0.022 ISO, a 218 xWOBA is terrible. Last year, he had a killer year, over 449 plate appearances, 23 home runs, 240 ISO. This could be the day to get Jock engaged in his season. Hasn't really barreled the ball much, hasn't really hit the ball very hard, striking out a little bit too much, not really drawing his same walk rate as last year. I expect it all comes around. We've got too much experience with Jock Peterson. He's just cheap. Adolis Garcia at 45-32. Pair of home runs on the board, 4 stolen bases is nice to see. Means he's healthy if he's running. 391 xWOBA underneath these surface numbers is much more encouraging. The power is very real. 18.4% barrels, 55.1% hard hits. As long as he keeps doing what he's doing, we're getting the 30-plus home run version of Adolis Garcia. Josh Young, 38-31. Excellent bat for those prices at third base. FanDuel's got it closer to correct. DraftKings is way under the mark. He missed most of the last year, but when he was here, he was all right. Created runs 2% better than average, hit 7 home runs. 2 years ago, in 515 plate appearances, he had 23 home runs, had a 201 ISO, 110 WRC plus. He is just good. Just play Josh Young for those prices if you're going to this team. The hope would be that he's a little underowned because people maybe don't remember. Sites sure don't. Nope. He's lower owned than the Seagers, Petersons, and Semyons of the world. Is actually projected for slightly higher ownership than Adelise. And then everybody else on this team a little bit lower than that. Super interesting bat for the money, though. I got to wrap this up because I still got to knock those hockey projections out. Dustin Harris at 25-26, mix and match quality there. He's got a home run on the board. Very, very cheap to help average down the pricing in this lineup by the lefty bat against Kochanowicz. Jake Berger with his home run upside, maybe, again, not the best day for picking off home runs, but if you're looking for somebody who could easily turn on one against Kochanowicz if he makes a mistake, Jake Berger's on that list. 6.58 in the home run model, 2 on the board this season. 278 XWOB, but not ideal. 140 ISO. Not really where we want him with premium contact, but not all that far off the mark yet either. Higashioka, always on the board for a cheap home run. Hasn't gotten one in his 31 plate appearances yet this year, but hit 17 after 2 straight years of exactly 10 and did it in the same number of plate appearances last year. Minor outburst for a player who's always been able to barrel the ball effectively. He's just a mix and match quality catcher with a little bit of power upside, but again, not the best day to chase home runs with this team. Leody Taveras, 32-25, mix and match quality outfielder. And then there's the Angels going up against Kumar Rocker. Rocker, over 3 starts, hasn't been all that effective. We've only seen 11 1/3 innings. 3 innings in his first start, give up 6 earned on 7 hits to the Reds at Cincinnati in that bandbox. 2 home runs allowed, struck out just 3, walked 2. Just 1 strikeout in the second start. That was against Tampa Bay. He only allowed 1 run. He ended up going 5 innings, faced 20 hitters, 6 hits, 1 strikeout, no walks. Oddball start there. And then 2 Ks, 2 walks over 3 1/3, allowed 3 earned, 4 runs total on 5 hits to the Mariners of all teams at Seattle. Kind of a meltdown-y start there. So we haven't really seen the best of Kumar Rocker yet. 6,400, he's very, very cheap on the FanDuel slate. I think you could throw at least a couple darts, considering there's no clear-cut go-to safe spot on this board. You can take the apple box that he'll provide you there at 64. What we're probably not getting, though, is the quality start. I don't think we even approach it. I think if they get 5 good innings out of Rocker here, they're going to shake his hand and send him to the showers. But that could be an effective enough start if he finds a few Ks. It's in no way safe. This Angels lineup has been rocking for power so far, but there are definitely strikeouts available here. 21.6% so far this season, but that's with J.D. Davis's 0 in there. Same collection of hitters, 23-8 last year, 24-2 the year before. Rocker. Last season in the minors. Oh, wait, that's not a big enough sample. Well, 9 starts in AAA last year. No, excuse me. 9 starts overall in the minors last year. 36 2/3. Not a big sample. 39.6% strikeouts. 3.6% walks. At the AAA level, that was only 2 starts, 10 innings, but he struck out 51% of the hitters he faced. It's ridiculous. Point being that the kid does have strikeout stuff, or at least the pedigree for. So the low strikeout rate so far, kind of an aberration. I do think there's upside, but it is in no way safe. Where it doesn't fit as well as I said at the beginning of the show, is the 7,500 price on DraftKings, because that just lumps him in with more appealing, more established options against comparable opponents. So I think he's kind of interesting here, even without the quality start bonus on a day where we don't know that anybody's getting that quality start. Just take the price advantage and hope for some strikeout upside. But where it plays the same as everybody else, it's a lot less interesting. I do think regardless of what you do with Kumar Rocker, you can definitely roster some Angels bats against him. 6.36 in the home run model for Mr. Mike Trout is maybe under appreciating him so far. 403 xWOBA, a 6 home run total to start his season. Obviously, the front end of the slash line is going to come around. It's Mike Trout, 16.7% barrels, 45.8% hard hits. As always, we just knock on wood and hope for health with Mike Trout, because he is still one of the very best hitters in all of baseball. Taylor Ward, Luis Rengifo, a lot of playability in those two bats ahead of Trout. You love the option to get anybody on base ahead of Mike Trout. The problem is so far they haven't really done so. 273, 284 on base out of those two players in a small sample. Nolan Schanuel, really they should consider moving up to the leadoff spot. Much as I like Taylor Ward, I think he's a more effective 5-hitter, and I think Nolan Schanuel is a more effective leadoff hitter given his skills, his demonstrable skills to reach first base. Right now hitting 6th, he's less interesting, but he is interesting for that skill set. It's a limited bottom of the lineup. So you're putting him on base, maybe not ahead of the greatest hitters. I know Kyron Paris is off to a great start, remains very much a work in progress before we get too excited. But over 52 plate appearances, you can't deny the 424 xWOBA, the 5 home runs, the 5 steals, the 246 WRC plus, and all the premium contact he's made. So that's at least interesting if you're looking for late lineup combinations. A Schanuel Kyron Paris bolt on to like a Trout Soler Ohapi, or a Ward, Trout, Soler, et cetera, not off the board. Kind of appealing given Schanuel's ability to get on base. J.D. Davis gets into the middle of that at 27-21. One empty plate appearance so far this year is not fair to judge him by. 157 last year weren't very good. 218, 293, 338, dipped to a 120 ISO, only hit 4 home runs. That was coming off of a decent season in 2023. He hit 18 homers over 546. Memory serves with the Giants. Year before that, 12 home runs over 365. What he's always been able to do is make high quality contact. 9.5% barrels, 44% hard hits 2 years ago, 8.7, 43.7 last year. So he does make good contact from the right side, but it's very few and far between as far as our successful days with this hitter. So really all he is cheap against a gettable young starter. I think he's playable, but he's in no way a priority. He can help average down the cost of rostering Mike Trout and some of these other guys, though. Timmy Anderson, dead at the bottom of the lineup until we see any signs of life. 229 xWOBA. He's way more dead than Marcus Semien is, if you want a comparison point. Logan Ohapi returning to the lineup. 5 home runs on the board already. 390 xWOBA. Masher of a catcher. Love him at the $4,800 price. I think if you're investing in Angels, it would be a mistake to leave him out. Just grab that little pocket of extreme barrel rate and extreme hard hits and just ride whichever one of them hits the home run. Probably coming for one of them. 6 for Trout, 4 for Soler, 5 so far for Ohapi. Monster power numbers. Excellent numbers through the xWOBA for all 3 of those players. The lowest ISO in that group right now is Soler at 246, and we know what the power for that hitter looks like. Definitely an interesting stack at 436 implied runs in Vegas. A lot of playability there. This goes Rangers bats, Angels bats, and then Kumar Rocker, more interesting on FanDuel, only loosely playable at the same price as everybody else on DraftKings, but playable. And then Kachanowicz really kind of off the board. One of the few pitchers that's off the board. And that's our slate. Pop back over here. That's our pitching board. Again, no safety. No safety whatsoever. Power's been disappointed by the Halos so far. It's just like on days where you've played them. Damn, Rooker was plus 260 to homer. I feel like the Angels have delivered on my high expectations for them. I said on opening day, I expect a lot out of that team for power, and they've been hitting. We'll see where it goes, but they've been interesting. Anyway, so everybody effectively the same price outside of Taj Bradley, who has monster upside, but is going to be very popular despite the high prices. Yanks have a ton of swing and miss in that lineup, but there's major, major power there. It's going to be 85 degrees in that ballpark in Tampa. I expect the ball to fly. I slightly prefer the Yankees upside, but I acknowledge Taj Bradley is right at the top of the pitching board. But if he's going to be crazy popular for the most expensive price by 1,000 and change, I'm happy to bypass him. I'll take some Yankees bats and I'll take my chances with the Olsons, Bybees, Cannings, Warrens of the world. I don't like Sugano and I don't like Kachanowicz at the bottom of the lineup. I'm sure they're nice guys, but I don't like them for DFS options. Palante, I think, is at least loosely playable, but I don't like the price given what his ceiling looks like. On a day where everybody else fails, if you get 6 clean innings out of Palante, maybe that equals success. So that's why he's at least on the board. But he's probably got the lowest ceiling out of the playable guys. Rocker, as we just discussed, that 64 on FanDuel as an Apple box is kind of appealing. At 75, comparing him to Warren, Canning, Bybee, and Olsen, less appealing. He's the 5th ranked out of that group. I got to take a moment after we end this to update the stacks before it's too late so that I can show a little bit more quality for Detroit than what I was initially putting on the board. I like the upside for that offense a little bit more, but Lorenzen's at least playable. That said, not great at 85, 81 price-wise compared to the rest of the board. Really like both options up top, but you got to have faith in both of them. Neither one has shown a ton this season, but we know those are two good pitchers. Bybee's better than Olsen, but probably in the worst matchup given the depth of that Orioles lineup and the talent there. Canning is a wild card. 71, 74. He's super cheap. I think there's upside there. We've seen him be good. We've seen him be disastrous and a major target for bats. As I said, that's like a 1-1. If I have a share of Canning, I want a share of Cardinals bats in a different lineup. And then Will Warren pitching in that disastrous pitching environment. I don't love the spot, but I really like the pitcher. I think we could find some Ks at price and probably at a pretty much a lack of popularity. It's another 1-for-1 situation because the Rays are showing tons of offensive upside here, but Warren's at least on the board. Mad Max points out, yeah, if you played the Angels over the last couple of days, you'd be disappointed season long. Far from it. Yeah, that's accurate. But that's it, gang. Let's punch out of this show. Let me get the site updated with all the confirmed lineups so that you have it for the next hour and a half to build your lineups with. I'll get that stacks board tweaked to show a little bit more quality for the Tigers. But again, it's not like I'm going to launch them to the very top of the board. I just want to move them off the bottom spot. But it's very much a day where all 10 of these offenses are in play. These are 10 good teams. There's not a bad team in the bunch here. There's a couple mediocre teams, but there's not a bad team. So fire away with bats. A lot of combinations available. You can play the price and ownership game. You could chase some results for sure on this slate where you're getting to some of the lower owned combinations, trying to pick off some high ROI lineups out the other side of Sims. A lot to play around with on this slate. Love the power upside that some of these spots are showing as well. Home run pick of the day was Jazz Chisholm Jr. That's available on the site. Projections up at rotoscouts.com. NHL projections will be up shortly after I end this show. Updates for baseball will come first, so check that out. Under $1 a day gives you baseball, hockey, basketball, all through the playoffs for those two sports. NFL when it comes back around. I can't believe I saw yesterday, by the way, Yahoo opened season-long fantasy football yesterday on April 16th. Now's the time to build your lineups, create your leagues for. Are you kidding? Baseball season just started. Give us a minute. Drives me nuts. Andy, thank you, pal. I appreciate it. Good luck to you too. Good luck to everybody out there. Somebody go win something tonight. How do I usually say it? Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something. Share a screenshot when you do, and we'll be back for a larger slate tomorrow. And we'll talk probably for 2 hours. See you guys.